Have you ever wondered what life was really like in the time of Jesus? Beyond the parables and miracles, what did people eat? What did it cost them? It's a question that's fascinated me for years. We often romanticize ancient times, but the truth of daily survival was a stark reality for most. I decided to dive deep to uncover the economic truths of the first century Roman province of Judea. And what I found, well, the results truly shocked me. Get ready to have your perspective shifted. To understand the cost of a loaf of bread, we first need to understand the world it was bought in. This was the Roman Empire at its zenith, yet Judea was a conquered territory, ruled by imperial governors and local client kings like Herod. Most people lived in small villages, eking out a living from the land. Life was primarily agricultural. There were no supermarkets, no credit cards, no fixed prices that we'd recognize today. The currency was Roman, denarii, sestertii. But local Jewish coinage was also in circulation, often used for temple taxes. A crucial piece of information for our investigation. A single denarius was considered a fair day's wage for a common laborer. Keep that in mind. Now, finding exact price lists from 2,000 years ago is, to put it mildly, a monumental challenge. We don't have ancient Amazon receipts. Instead, historians and archaeologists piece together this puzzle from various sources. Roman decrees, biblical parables, writings of historians like Josephus and Pliny the Elder often mention prices or economic transactions in passing. Storehouses, granaries, and even ancient garbage dumps give us clues about consumption. Preserved documents from Egypt, a Roman province with a similar economic structure, sometimes contain contracts or records that mention goods and their value. It's rarely a precise figure, more often a range or a relative value. But by cross-referencing these sources, a picture begins to emerge, and it paints a very different world than our own. Let's start with the absolute essentials. Bread and grain. This was the staff of life. Wheat and barley were the most important crops. A typical diet revolved around bread, often made from coarser barley for the poor, or finer wheat for the more affluent. One denarius, a day's wage, could typically buy around 8 to 16 liters of wheat, depending on the harvest and location. This amount of wheat could be milled into enough flour for several days' worth of bread for a small family. So a common laborer could feed his family bread for a few days with one day's work. Sounds okay, right? But remember, that's just bread. Next. These weren't luxuries, but core components of the diet and daily life. Wine was often mixed with water and consumed daily, sometimes for its caloric value, sometimes because water quality was questionable. Olive oil was used for cooking, lamp fuel, cosmetics, and even medicine. A denarius might buy a few liters of average quality wine, or about 1.5 to 2 liters of olive oil. These were significant purchases. What else filled the ancient pantry? Lentils, chickpeas, beans, onions, garlic, and various greens were common and likely cultivated in home gardens or bought cheaply in local markets. These were vital for nutrition, especially for the poor. Their prices were probably low relative to grain, perhaps pennies or small copper coins for a small basket. This is where the shock truly begins to set in. Meat was a luxury, a rarity for most. It wasn't a daily staple like it is for many of us. For the common person, meat would typically only be eaten during festivals, religious sacrifices, or very special occasions. A small bird, like a pigeon, might cost an as, a quarter of a denarius. A lamb or goat, for a larger feast or sacrifice, could cost several denarii, possibly even upwards of 10 or 12 denarii. That's more than a week's wages for a laborer. Fish was more common, especially near the Sea of Galilee. A few small fish might cost an as or two, making it a more accessible protein source than red meat. Other vital goods. Essential for preservation and flavor. It was relatively cheap, but always needed. Simple tunics were homemade or purchased, costing several denarii depending on quality and fabric. A good cloak could be very expensive, a significant investment. Rent or ownership of land and shelter was a massive expenditure, often generations of debt. So, what's the shocking part? It's not the absolute numbers which seem small to us. It's the relative cost. Imagine earning 1 denarius a day. If you buy enough wheat for your family's bread for 3 days, that's already a third of your income gone right there. Then add the cost of olive oil for cooking and light. Some wine, maybe a few vegetables. You quickly realize that for the vast majority of people, nearly all of their daily wage went towards basic sustenance. There was little to no disposable income, no savings. One bad harvest, one illness, one lost day of work, and a family could quickly plummet into destitution, debt, and even slavery. The margin for survival was incredibly thin. This wasn't just poverty. It was a constant, grueling struggle for basic existence. This economic reality profoundly shaped society. It explains why debt was such a prevalent issue in parables. Why the rich were so incredibly rich, because they controlled the land and the means of production, accumulating wealth, while others toiled for mere survival. Why daily bread was a plea for divine intervention, a desperate hope for another day of sustenance. Why hospitality, sharing a meal, was such a profound act of charity and community. The investigation into food prices in Jesus' time isn't just about ancient economics. It's about understanding the human condition then, and perhaps even now. The prices themselves are less shocking than the implications of those prices. The sheer difficulty of survival, the vast chasm between the haves and have-nots, and the constant battle against hunger. Next time you hear a parable about a laborer's wage or read about daily bread, I hope you'll see it through a new lens. It wasn't just a story. It was the raw, undeniable truth of life for millions. It certainly changed my perspective. What shocked you most about these revelations? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this journey into history as fascinating as I did, please like this video and subscribe for more explorations into the past.